morning and welcome to the Jungle Podcast. I'm your host, Dakota Ward. I'm joined here this morning by a dear friend, a family friend, long time, you might say father figure to myself. And so happy to have you here. This is Mike Hickman from Keller Williams, Realtor. Mike, how you doing this morning?
Doing fantastic.
Awesome, man. So happy to have you here. It's been a long time.
Yes, it has.
It's been too long. So we'll go through a few things. We'll introduce you, let you have some time to talk about who you are, what you do, why you do it, and ask a couple marketing questions. And
okay.
Just, my only rule is have fun. So
I'm all about that.
Love it. Well, Mike, for those of us that do know you, for those that don't, tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bit about your background. Then we'll get into what you do.
So I consider myself a highly educated country boy. Grew up in the middle of nowhere on property that was granted by King George a long time ago.
Oh, wow.
Family property. And grew up in the construction, plumbing, electrical, HVAC business. We had a family business. Started working in that business since I was 7 years old. So when I went home from school, I didn't go home. I went to the store.
Wow.
So I got to do things at a young age that nobody my age talks about because they didn't have experience with plumbing with lead and oakum, things like that. So I grew up doing that, sort of a lot of older folks that I got to learn and learn from. A lot of great mentors, father figures you're talking about that were people that were coming in the store. And I had an interest in engineering and science, and so I competed in International Science and Engineering Fair and won grand awards twice.
Wow.
Doing solar, this crazy thing, solar technology back then.
Really?
Back in the 80s. And so from there, went to Georgia Tech and got a degree in civil engineering, and went and did forensic geotechnical investigations. My first property was a big house in Wildercliff. There was $11 million in 1989 that was falling apart. And so we took several years and fixed that. I also did environmental consulting. I did some landfill design work, some around the Atlanta area here. So did that, did a lot of underground storage tank cleanups for gas stations. A lot of systems leaked back in those days. Mm-hmm. And was actually in Ireland celebrating in County Clare with a gentleman who helped develop Peachtree City, Georgia.
Wow.
I had done a lot of work for developers, and I told Mr. Cowan that I wanted to get out of the consulting world and get over in the development world. Atlanta real estate is one of those places that's a good spot to be for a long time now.
Yeah.
So he said, well, I thought, well, maybe offer me a job. Didn't happen. But a couple of years later, I got a phone call to develop a community called Echelon in Southeast Cherokee County. That got me into real estate. I had a boat and I did the survey there for the pond and the dam we eventually built a $16 million Reese Jones Championship golf course, and sold home sites there that were roughly 1 acre, from anywhere from $220,000 to $600,000 for a 1 acre piece of land. And very quickly I realized that the developer didn't know what they were doing because I had more experience in Atlanta real estate than they did. Okay. And so I stuck it out until I realized it was going to fail. Mm-hmm. And so I left. I jumped off the Titanic before it went down. Smart. And so smart. And luckily there was a guy in Austin, Texas named Gary Keller who had this great company. Uh-huh. And so we flew down there and went through franchise systems operations, FSO, for a week. Okay. Learned what their philosophy was, business philosophy, and most importantly that he was designing a company around a culture. Okay. And that culture fit with my values. And so jumped in and became an owner agent with Keller Williams in Forsyth County, Georgia, which is a fairly affluent county and fairly a lot of business going on there. Oh yeah. And and I do work in all over Metro Atlanta, and so I still do a little consulting work every once in a while, not a whole lot. Sure. But mostly what I do is regular residential real estate. We have 220 something agents now. And I taught a class yesterday on one of our software packages. Oh, wow. And so it's fun. I'm at the point now where I get to help my friends out with whatever they need real estate wise, whether it's investing or building a new house, which is got a big one going up, starting up pretty soon here. That's going to be fun. And then on top of that, I get to be an old head and mentor some of the younger people about, how to build a business. And the cool thing about our business is you can do it a million ways.
Yeah.
I've got a great friend who built her entire business on Facebook. From her Facebook friends. I've got another guy who literally drives around all over 3 or 4 counties, looks for sale by owners. He's a former Marine. And he's
a boots on the ground.
He's a boots on the ground kind of guy,
Yeah.
and he finds people that want to sell their house, but they don't want to use an agent. And sometimes he says, well, maybe it's better to use an agent. And so he gets in the door and talks to them, and that's how he does his business. I've got a couple of other people that for a long time there did nothing but REO property, which is foreclosed, bank foreclosed properties.
Okay.
And so they dealt with asset managers. And what they did is Bank of America would say, hey, we got 30 properties in North Georgia we need to sell. We want you to sell them. And so they would go in and manage those properties, secure them, first of all, make them sure they're safe, lock them up, and put them on the market and sell them. So it's just a bunch of different ways to do this business. And that's what's so funny. You can pivot and change and, do other different stuff. And it's just a lot of fun. It's a different project every day because every client is different. Every situation is different. It's a puzzle. So that's the engineer geek in me gets to figure out the puzzle and hopefully make it work. And 99.999% of the time I make it work.
There you go. At least you're honest.
At least I'm honest.
Yeah.
No hundreds for me.
Yeah, that's right.
I did fail once.
Yeah. Once. Yeah.
Once.
That's right. How long have you been at Keller Williams?
Since 2004.
2004. Wow. Yeah. Time flies.
Yeah. So I'm just old enough to drive.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're pretty new to it. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I mean, talking about the real estate market, I'd be curious as to your thoughts of where we're at. Just in this time, maybe nationally, even locally, you talked about Forsyth County. That's one of the fastest growing counties in America for the last 15, almost 20 years?
Yeah, so I don't pay attention to the national market as much because of the fact that I don't need to.
Yeah.
I am hyper local focused. Yeah. So sometimes I can tell you in a particular subdivision that certain streets are selling well, certain aren't. And sometimes there's reasons why. I know one place where for whatever reason, everybody parks their car on the street, and it looks like it's a lower level community.
Yeah.
It looks like there's too many people living in each house, and that look, even though it's a $400,000 to $600,000 area, pulls those values down.
Really?
It's so interesting. And it's funny because I teach sales psychology. I've been teaching it since 1995. And so I pay attention to this stuff and I do my own little studies and I ask questions of clients that are with me. I say, what's the problem? Why do you have a bad feel about this area?
Yeah.
And it takes a while to get drilled down. And then at some point you'll hear, oh, well, the mailboxes aren't painted or whatever, because they don't know what it is. They just know they have a feeling they don't like. And so I try to drill down to that, and that's a lot of fun. So I was here through the run-up, obviously, until 2007 when the subprime mortgage price hit, and took a nasty hit in our business there for a little while.
Sure.
So I've been through that. It took me about 2 years to stop walking into houses and not trying to turn the lights on, because for about 3 or 4 years there, every house had no power because the only thing you could sell was foreclosures. And the banks had cut the power off. Some of them were this is smart, in the summertime in Atlanta, which is humid, you turn the power off. I've literally been in places where it was so moldy that you couldn't see the walls.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I mean, like hazardous. I literally have a respirator in my car from my environmental days.
Yeah.
And I've had clients, I said, you can't walk in here. It's just too dangerous to you. So there was a time where you walked in every house with a flashlight, and that's how you looked at the house. And it took me a little while when things turned around to realize, oh, there's light. You can turn the lights on,
Like, wait, these still work?
Yeah, it's such a little thing, but it's such a big thing in how the market goes. And so the luxury community took a humongous hit during all that time, and it's still trying to recover. And it just now in the last year is recovering, and it's partly because you've got people who were quarantined in their 3,500 square foot house. They can afford an 8,000 square foot house. Maybe their house in Colorado they couldn't get to because they can't fly to it, or maybe the lockdown in Colorado was worse than here, so they didn't want to go there or wherever. Or I've got people that are actually Colorado clients who are in Florida right now because Florida's open and they want to be able to live. So they have the ability to choose. Some of these folks that weren't building these big houses now are, but they're building them with a pool and a cabana and a sport court and Wi-Fi, fiber optics all the way out to the pool. So they can work wherever they want to, even little Zoom casting areas, you know what I mean? So they can do a Zoom call and have a gorgeous background behind them.
Right.
So you have people doing their own little studios. And so we're back to those people spending some money on some 7,000, 10,000 square foot houses that have everything. Massage room, sauna, the whole deal.
Yoga pavilion.
Hey, that's a big one, honestly. It really is. And quiet space, reading room with no electrical plugs in there, just a light and a nice chair.
Yeah.
And maybe some speakers,
Yeah.
And so we're cycling back around to another, situation here. And it's fun to go through all that and help work people through that because I'm not a person that works with just buyers or just sellers.
Okay.
I work with both, and one's more profitable than the other depending on the kind of market you're in. But the reason I work with both is because I have to know how sellers are thinking to help my buyers,
right? And
I have to know how buyers are thinking to help my sellers.
Sure.
And so it's just you have to. It's the same boots on the ground. You got to know what people are thinking and what's going on.
Yeah. And
of course now, it's interesting. We're seeing the lockdown people move. I mean, I've got people moving here from Maryland, California, New York. They're just they have the ability to move, and some of them moving their entire business.
Wow.
So that's been interesting to see as well. The ability for people to move to a place that they feel is better for them.
Yeah.
Which
what's that like as almost like a spectator? Watching all this kind of happen.
It's interesting because you hear the stories and listen, my best friend owns an Italian restaurant, and in the Valley in Northridge, right in California, and they're going broke, and they're trying to do the best they can, open the kitchen up, do deliveries, whatever. Sure. But at the end of the day, the reason you go to this restaurant is because you meet your friends there, and you have a great glass of wine and some phenomenal food, and it's the social aspect just as much as the food. They're not getting the social part.
Right.
As a matter of fact, in some places, you can get arrested for surfing, I think it was in California.
Oh, I don't know about that.
A guy got arrested for surfing by himself, but because he wasn't, whatever. So it's become so draconian there that some of these people are like, listen, if I can't enjoy my life, even though California, the weather is great, I think I'll move to Texas. So Austin's doing great. Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston.
Right.
And so that's another destination spot that people are going to. It's got plenty of property there. Yeah. Land's cheap. So I think there's a guy named Elon Musk, I think, that's chosen the same thing.
Yeah, I've heard about that guy.
Yeah, he's doing pretty good financially, I think.
Yeah.
And but he's left California and is headed to Texas.
Interesting.
So it's interesting to watch. The cool part about it is that and I have friends in other countries,
right?
They don't have that ability. You can't go if you live in Slovakia, okay? You live in Bratislava, and things are bad. Guess what? There's nowhere to go.
Right.
There's nowhere any better because you're stuck.
Yeah.
And I guess you could change countries and go to Romania or Hungary or something, and try something different. But here, at least, the experiment with us is that we got these 50 states and a few territories where they do different things, and that's the whole experiment, right? You let these states, experiment with things, and then if it works really well, then hopefully you adopt it the other states, and then you maybe adopt it nationally.
Right.
We're not homogenous, and that's the point.
Sure.
So it's cool to be able to watch that. What's crazy is to see people that pick up everything and move their family because it's gotten so bad. I'm like, that's really interesting to me.
That's hard to do.
Well, I mean, look at me. I'm Georgian since. Before I've got a family member who fought in the Battle of Kettle Creek. He was a traitor to the king. Okay, the name is Owen Fluker.
Mm-hmm.
So I look back and go, I don't want to move out of the state. This is, I mean, this I got this red clay under my fingernails. You know, I was born with it.
Yeah.
But I could also see where if it gets to the point where we can't live how we want to, then I guess we can find somewhere else. I mean, you know, it's just dirt.
That's right. It's just dirt.
It's just dirt. Yeah, and I'm not going to take anything with me.
Yeah.
Actually, it's going to take me back is what's going to happen.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, you might take some.
Yeah, well, I mean, Elon says I may be able to go to Mars. Who knows? Maybe I'll just, establish the new colony on Mars, one day.
We've got some civilians out there in space right now.
I know. It's cool.
I haven't tracked them to see what's going on there. I don't know if you know anything about it, but it is fascinating.
I haven't tracked them either, but I think it's fascinating too, you know.
Super cool.
And,
we have a question on Facebook, and they're asking, what have you learned with current times and the opportunities in real estate?
So it's interesting, opportunities in real estate. So one opportunity that was there for a long time was the flip, buy the house, fix it up, flip it, right?
Sure, yeah.
Now there's no inventory to buy. I'm in that world as well, along with my brother-in-law. And we bought condos for $12,000 and $25,000 in Sandy Springs. Those, you can't go to the courthouse steps and buy anything because there's not any inventory there, right? So that's gone away. You had humongous companies like BlackRock step in during the downturn and buy residential houses. They'd never done that before.
Yeah.
And they've got those properties fixed up and rented out, and they've got an income on that. You never saw it at that scale before. So now the opportunities are a little bit different. If you want to make money in real estate, either you got to get in the real estate business, okay, or you've got to try to put together some capital and put together some kind of real estate investment trust, that kind of thing. Or you can also invest in real estate investment trusts and be completely hands off and just watch the market and let everybody else do the work for you. And that's a way to invest in real estate. One of the best ways to invest in real estate actually is to buy a house, stay in it 2 or 3 years, sell it, pocket the capital gains. But that's a whole, again, it's a risky venture because you've got to pick an area that's going to go up in value. Atlanta, actually, top to bottom, is pretty good because everybody wants to move here. I mean, look over the years, you've had Newell Rubbermaid and you've had UPS and these different large companies. Amazon, we were a spot,
Very close to getting that. Yeah.
Very close to getting that. So we're a destination because we've got a couple of things. We got a really good, hardworking group of people here. We've got a technology base that is, we're in a lot of ways we're the Silicon Valley, of the Southeast.
Sure. Yeah.
We've got the movie industry here, which is a whole new thing. Now we've got creative arts adding to that, and so when you get creative and technology and business savvy all put together and all these pretty trees that we have protected here, you get a pretty good combination and you become a destination. And you know what? We're not too hot. We're not too cold. We have seasons like some other places don't. So the opportunities have changed a lot, and that's what's been interesting to watch. And people move in and out of that. And I still see people that are going to these flip seminars, and they're paying $500 for a Saturday seminar, and they come out and they call me on Sunday going, "Hey, I want to make I would like to make 10 offers a week and $10 a day for me." And I said, "Okay, that's great. I charge $175 an hour." And they go, "Oh, well, I thought you would do that for free." I said, "Do you work for free?"
Yeah.
No. Well, but the seminar guy, I said, "Hey, the seminar guy,
he got you.
He got you. You paid $500. That's. I said the reason he has the Jaguar parked out front and the $2,000 alligator shoes is because he's charging $500 a head for a full room. It's not a bad gig if you can do it, But in reality, that market's not. But it'll come back. That's what's interesting at some point, at some level.
Yeah, they ebb and flow, and maybe they're just watching too much HGTV and.
I never watch HGTV. Everybody comes to me. Actually, one of the jokes in real estate is when people tell me they've watched HGTV, and I say, "Oh, great! You know exactly how this works, okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to set up a search for you. We're going to identify 3 properties. We're going to spend an hour and a half. We're going to look at 3 properties. At the end of it, we're going to pick one, and we're going to buy it.
Yeah. Then we're going to have this big truck go away.
Big truck go away, yeah. And Mike's profit margin goes way up because I only spent 90 minutes, to help a person find a house. It's not how it works. It also doesn't work to show 187 houses. I've done that one time. I'll never do that again.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That's spend 11 months, working for someone until you get paid. And I think I'll never do this again. I figured out my dollar per hour for that particular client. Right. I made 87 cents an hour. It was great. I'll never do it. I'll never do it again.
11 months. That's a long time.
11 months, but 87 cents an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put that one on the fridge.
Yep.
You talked about one of the ladies with you guys that built her entire business through Facebook, through social media.
Yep.
Can you speak a little bit about how that's impacting you, maybe impacting others around, and obviously that lady that did her entire business around Facebook?
So what she does is she's very creative and she's very funny. And so she just puts stuff out there that talks about real estate in a light way. She's not saying, hey, look at my listing all the time or whatnot, because that's boring, honestly. Sure. You can go and pull up my app and look at properties if you want to flip through that. So what she did is she just made sure that everybody she knew she was in real estate.
Right.
And, what would happen is someone would randomly come up in a group, and go, hey, I'm looking for a real estate agent. Who do you know? And then we go, oh, you got to call Katie, So she would get referrals that way. I've never tried to use Facebook in that realm. Okay. I've used Facebook for personal reasons. I'm contacting with old high school people, or I'm a member of groups and fun things like that.
Yeah. I
have paid to boost, listings and whatnot on Facebook. And so there's that ability there. Twitter has a whole different way to use Twitter, which is very powerful for business.
Oh yeah.
And the fact that you can do some searches and whatnot and look for geographically who other Twitter users are around. So I have built some stuff around that. I have 3 or 4 different Twitter accounts I use for different things.
Yeah.
LinkedIn I don't use as much, although I have a huge group of people that I'm with there. And what's strange though is that I do have random people that call me up and say, hey, I want to hire you. And they know everything about me because my LinkedIn profile is very, very deep.
Sure.
And they look at that. I've got one client I just closed my 3rd property with in 5 years. And they found me from Florida because they were looking, these are people who are very, very meticulous. I mean, extremely meticulous people. And so they were looking for somebody and they found me. And when they called me up, they were like, you're the exact person we want because of my background from the construction, since I was a kid all the way to consulting, to doing structural engineering stuff, to the regular real estate business. So I've got this particular skill stack, as Scott Adams says, that's very unique. So they hired me for that skill stack. And what's cool is that when that kind of person calls me, I don't have to compete for business. I'm not saying, well, I'm better because I do this and this and this. I very rarely do that. Every once in a while I do. I just did it last year. I was competing against actually some pretty big teams. And it was interesting because I thought, well, this is going to be tough because they brought in 4 different people and they've got their marketing specialists and their staging specialists and all these people. And I am all those people, although I do have team members that do help me with certain things when I need it. And so what's interesting was, so I won it. And some of these big teams were sort of surprised, like, well, what did you do? And I said, well, first of all, I developed a relationship with the client. And so we're selling, our house, not I'm selling your house. It's our property. I take some pride and responsibility in it.
Sure.
And the other thing is I didn't try to say, oh, the market's terrible. We need to price it as low as possible, which is what some agents, that's their thing, is to push volume.
Yeah.
I'm not about that. I'm coming from the consulting world and the environmental world. I want to go out there and do the best I can for my client. That's what makes me happy. It just so happens they pay me for it.
Yeah.
It's
just the added benefit.
It's just the added benefit of having to get paid for it. And what's cool is that I'm never thinking of money first.
Sure.
And that's sometimes hard to help my new people understand because they're thinking about, I have to pay my bills.
Sure.
I have to close something. I have to get a buyer. I have to get a listing. I have to. And I'm like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. It says if you're going into that attitude, you're going in with you first.
Yeah.
That's not a fiduciary. That's not a consultant. So
my grandfather used to say, he's like, after me, you come first.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so the way I look at it is that it's a team sport.
Yeah.
I just say, hey, listen, I'm going to handle the marketing because you're terrible at it. I'm really good at it. I'm really bad at keeping your house clean. You know, so you're going to handle the house, you know, the condition of the property, right? We're going to together work on the price. We're going to use the data, both of what's been sold. And what's interesting is I look at what the competition is, because you can look at what's sold, but that's past, okay? In this particular property I'm thinking about was one that when you comped it out, I think it comped out at like 375.
Okay.
But looking at the market, there was nothing else like it. I was like, I have a unicorn. Somebody always wants to buy a unicorn. So I think I priced that house at $425. We sold it for $435. Multiple offers.
Wow.
So our biggest worry is it going to appraise? And it did, but partially because I have a whole process I use with appraisers to make them understand this is a unicorn and here's why. And if you want to know if there's a demand, here's the front sheets for 10 offers I had on this property. And so that helps with having them understand this is what this is. Yeah. And yeah, it's a fun business. It's funny. I've never done anything this long ever.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I can do underground storage tank, corrective action plan parts A's and B's, and phase 1 environmental site assessments. Sure. In my sleep. They're really boring. Yeah. Yeah. And if my brain is not happy, I'm not happy. Yeah. So it's been interesting to see how the changes in the market and the little nuances that happen make things different. There's some little things that I do that I think are really fun that not a lot of other people are doing. Some things I do are from the gold mining business. I won't talk about them, but because they're trade secrets.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a quote, and I forget who said it, but it's, if you're not coming home after work and working on yourself, you're not lazy. You're just uninspired. Yeah,
I mean, I was in the Quest program in middle school, and we had to read, was it To the Top by Zig Ziglar? What was the name of the book?
I don't know if I know.
Stay at the Top. Anyway, it was Zig Ziglar's first book.
Yeah, okay.
When I first read it, I said, this is the most boring thing ever. This is not anything like, fun stuff. Yeah. Like, this is not Talkin, right? And, but after reading that, I started listening to Earl Nightingale on tapes,
Yeah.
And there's a, Jim Rohn, and there's a pile of those people that I started listening to because I could listen to pop music and, and know what was and be able to talk about that.
Sure.
But that didn't make me any money. It didn't make me any better. As a matter of fact, in some cases, it probably would make me worse depending on who I was listening to. And so I really took into that. And today, still, I'm listening to people. Now it's podcasts, all kinds of varied people. Some of the stuff I agree with, sometimes I don't. But you always learn something. So you're always gathering, trying to make yourself better. And what's interesting is my wife laughs at me because we've traveled all over the world, and I can sit down with someone from, Lisieux, France. Yeah. We can have a conversation because there's something I've read about or know about that is common. It could be Jersey farm, cattle farming. My family was in the cattle business, in the dairy business for a while, and so we had the Avon Indian Jersey farm. Yeah. So there's some things about that I can talk about, and it's interesting. We were just talking about this book, yesterday that I've been reading from 1854. Yeah. And how the more things change, the more they stay the same. Absolutely. And the guy's literally complaining about the fact that teletypes and railroads have caused the long-form conversation to go away. And I'm thinking, he's complaining about this in 1854, and now we have
nobody has an attention span. Yeah.
That's what he said. The attention span is terrible, except for Congress, and they talk too much, which was part of the comment.
Yeah.
So sort of fun.
That's probably true today too.
Yep. Yep. So working on yourself is definitely something you have to just continue going. You just got to keep on going. Yeah. Because you're never perfect.
No, and you can't be.
But I'm 99.999% there.
Yeah. There's one time out of 100.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if you know this, but I follow a little bit of Stoicism, and so there's an old Stoic teaching that is, take one bit of information, take one quote, one paragraph, one sentence, whatever it is, learn one new thing a day.
Yep.
And that'll get you successful. And so the moment we get complacent, the moment we start, all right, let's see what's the new Netflix thing. You're not learning anything unless you're watching a documentary.
Right.
And then you may pick up on some
And they have
stuff.
some good ones.
And they have a lot of good ones. And I love documentaries. They're so much fun to watch. But at the same time, it's a different kind of stimulation within your brain. You're sitting here visually, but you're not actively using your brain, whereas you would reading a book like that.
Yeah.
From 1865 or 1850.
So last night I watched a documentary on the Apollo program, and they're talking about mission control.
Okay.
And they were going through the Apollo 1. The guys actually burned up on the ground in the capsule, all the way to Apollo 17, and the leadership that was developed and some of the things that they talked about. Toughness and competence was what they talked about after the Apollo 1 tragedy. And so I'm watching this, but at the same time, every so often I would pause it, pick up my phone, and I'm thinking, really? I can't, so at some point I just took the phone and put it in the other room and said, okay, I'm actually going to watch this because there's something to be learned here about leadership and about handling a group of technical people that is interesting.
Yeah.
And like you said, it could be this tiniest little thing, and what it was this, they went after the number one strategy when they put astronauts in a oxygen environment where literally the tiniest little spark was going to cause a fire, and it did, and it killed 3 people. And the guy came back in and he put all those people together. He goes, "Listen, I want you to understand something. We killed those 3 men. Didn't place any blame, didn't take any blame, but we did it."
Yeah.
And he said, from now on, it's going to be toughness and competence. And he said, put that up on your whiteboard, never take it down. And so toughness was you call out somebody who you think is wrong, and don't be timid about it. And the second thing is that when you called out for being wrong, you better know why you have the opinion you have.
Yeah.
And so that's a competence level. So what happened with all that is if you look at the Apollo 13 situation, man, they had an explosion on an aircraft on a craft, right? And were able to bring those guys back home with duct tape and plastic and filters. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. With
slide rules.
That is toughness and competence.
That's something, if they know what they're talking about. And if you saw some of the charts of how what even tougher than all that was how they turned the electrics back on in such a way where they didn't blow any breakers, where it would all just turn off and the computers would just shut down.
Yeah.
They literally had to go flip this switch and then flip this switch. They knew exactly how many amps I was going to take, so that they could do it in a particular, very detailed order, so that they could get it back on again, and live in the limb until they could get into the module to come back home.
Yeah.
And the funniest part about the whole thing was the astronaut crew, when they got through the ionization zone and entry back in the atmosphere, they purposely didn't call back to Houston to make them worry.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and these guys are sweating it out. They're going, I think it's Odyssey. Odyssey? This is Houston.
Yeah.
Nothing. Like, oh, man, these guys burned up.
Yeah.
So that's what they're thinking. And all of a sudden it's Houston, Odyssey.
Yeah. Hey there.
Just a few seconds, but, for fun, hey, I guess you realize, hey, we're alive. This is pretty funny that we're alive. We really appreciate that, but let's make the guys on the ground sweat a little bit more.
Yeah, I was going to say, as if they weren't already.
As if they weren't already. I was like, this is awesome.
That's wild. Well, it's almost like like a little experiment in and of itself.
Yeah.
Which is, you turn the switch back to marketing, which is in essence a big experiment, right? But you have to learn from that experiment. If you keep making the same dumb mistakes over and over again, you're not going to be successful. So, you find out what works. You find out, just like yourself in your experiment, of there's too many cars on the street, right? And so if you're a buyer looking for a house that wants to take it 2-3 years and then turn around and sell it, if you're buying a house with a lot of cars on the street, it's going to be very hard because your property value is going to drop. Yeah,
it's interesting that you have to fail a whole lot at marketing which means you have to do a lot of it to
Right.
figure out what works. And what's
Right.
crazy is what works 3 years ago may not work today. I mean, because, first of all, what can you not say? That's questionable.
Yeah.
What platform are you on?
Yeah.
There are certain friends of mine who I'll never reach on Facebook again or Twitter again. They're gone.
Yeah.
They're not coming back. They're offended. So now what do I do?
Right.
Do I start leaning on LinkedIn? Do I go to MeWe or Clubhouse or Parlor or whoever else is out there
Right.
and try to reach those people? Or do I go old school and pick up the phone and say, hey, what are you doing for breakfast?
Yeah.
Which is actually how I built my business. And
Talk about that for a second.
yeah, well, so about 80% of my time is actually not spent doing anything having to do with real estate. And the reason why is that I built my business on pushing other people forward, whatever it happens to be. This morning, there's a friend of mine who works in this building that you're in. And so at some point I realized, oh, you guys in the same building. So I'm going to put you guys together. And who knows, something may happen for that. And that's the fun part for me is pushing other people forward in their business or whatever they're trying to do.
Right.
I've got people who call me and say, hey, listen, my kid's a phenomenal baseball player playing at East Cobb. Can you help him with, whatever? Well, I have a huge database. So yeah, I know some pretty good coaches and whatnot. I know some trainers around. I'm like, this guy's a great hitter. I said, well, then, there's a guy named Vic Radcliffe. Need to go talk to Vic, So I've got a good friend who's played football at Georgia Tech, and he has a barbecue sauce. I'm always pushing Reed's barbecue sauce. It's all about the sauce. I mean, I've done videos for him, and we've done little photo things for him. I was just at Leonard's Farmers Market, and I said, hey, where's your Reed sauce? And he goes, well, I don't have it. I said, here's Rashad's number. Call Rashad, And so little stuff like that. One of my buddies on Twitter took a picture of Reed's sauce and said, hey, at Michael S. Hickman told me to get this. And I'm like, so I hit up, so I tagged my buddy Rashad and goes, hey, do some business, and he might not make a huge amount of money off of the barbecue sauce business, but what he's learning by being out there in an entrepreneurial space,
right?
It's a skill stack that you don't know what's going to happen with it, or who knows, he may take off, and all of a sudden, Heinz or Hunt's or somebody may say, listen, I'd like to offer you $10 million for that, which is what I hope happens, And the other funny part about it is that I do a lot with Georgia Tech athletes, and so I love to joke with them and have fun with them, and so I'll be with a particular person, down on campus, and I'm like, hey, listen, when you sign the $110 million contract, I just want you to remember that I've offered this, okay? I'm willing to take 5 months out of my business, and I will help you find the perfect island to buy in the Bahamas. Now, of course, I'm going to have to be flown around private, because I don't fly, commercial. So if you can just get me aircraft, helicopter, whatever, I'll go with you for 5 or 6 months, and we'll find the right island for you to buy. And I said, I'm thinking probably around the $35-40 million range is about the place to be. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll even cut my commission a little bit, just to help you out. So we'll work something out, and they're laughing, but in some ways it's partly I'm serious because I want them to understand that opportunity is a possibility for them. Right. Yeah. And I want them to be thinking about what they're going to do with that money, because blowing that's the wrong thing to do with it. If you're creating generational wealth, then, and these guys are 19, 20, 21 years old. They're not thinking about kids and all. They're not thinking about that. But I want them to get it in the back of their mind because it's something they need to think about. Sure. And what they're gonna do with that. And I also talk to them about remembering, and helping out the next people. And that's sort of fun because I've gotten to watch several different of those people that are at that level come back and help, whether it's neighborhood revitalization money that's happening in Atlanta right now. There's some cool stuff happening, and And you don't hear about it because these people are not seeking fame or whatever, but they're doing some good stuff with their money, and it's helping people out, and it's growing the economy, and I just like being a little piece of that. It's just fun to watch it happen. And the older I get to see the little stuff that goes on. I'm like, you know what? And it's funny because for me, it happened because I was in a bar in Ireland complaining about the consulting world, and a guy made a phone call.
Yeah.
One phone call. Moved my family where we live. Wouldn't have been friends with your family if we hadn't moved. So you think of all the things that happened from one phone call.
Yeah.
So I don't take that lightly at all because you just never know.
That's right. You never know.
You never know. And that's the fun part about it is because you just plant these little seeds out there and see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting the fulfillment that we get from a servant's attitude. And so someone like yourself that has a natural inclination for a servant's heart, depending on your belief system is, we're really created to be servants to each other. And there's a reason why we get a joy out of, giving gifts on Christmas and on birthdays and helping people succeed and elevate their business. That's where I get my fulfillment from is, bringing them to our guys here at Liger and knowing that if you guys would just trust us for 6 months, your business is going to be so much better. And I'm going to be a happy guy because I know I got to be a very small part of that.
Yep.
And so, for you, it's getting somebody into a new home or getting rid of their home that they're in and into the next chapter of their life. And
that's a very personal thing. I mean, I have been in situations, whether sometimes bad situations, divorce or, loss of a spouse and I've been in great situations where, hey, got pregnant with twins. We got to have a bigger house. So I've been in other situations, and it's interesting because, I don't talk out of turn. So I have situations where I'm the only person that really, really knows what somebody's going through because they don't want their family to worry. Maybe it's a medical situation. And so we quietly help them. I quietly help them get through their situation with dignity. In such a way where we're setting up their family for a better situation, hopefully. And so there's definitely some laughter and tears that happens in this business that nobody sees.
Right.
But that's sort of the fun part too, is because you feel leaned on to be the confidant, the person that can really help out. And then sometimes it's, hey, listen, I'm not qualified to handle this. Here's somebody you can call that I trust that can help you work your way through this. And that way they don't feel like that they're unusual or alone or, and that's the funny part is people going through some bad stuff. They always think, oh, I'm the only person that's ever happened to. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Trust me.
I can name 10 off the top of my head.
Yeah, I can go boom, 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 boom. I say, tell you what, you want to start a support group tomorrow? Yeah. I can have a support group tomorrow, and you can lead it. So
not discrediting how you feel or what you're going through.
No, but it happens. That's what's funny too about houses. Is I tell people that want this perfect thing, and I said, we lived in caves for how many thousands and tens and thousands of years? Yeah. Somehow we adapted to that. I said, so guess what? When you buy that house, you're going to adapt to it.
There's a book that's I think Matt Ridley writes it. It's called the Rational Optimist, and so he takes pieces and points in past and then brings you forward to the future. And says, look, if we've gone this far, why do we, pander on about, oh my gosh, we're not doing anything or we're not getting far enough? Like, be an optimist about it. Look how far we've come. You take King Louis the 13th or the 14th. It took 473. I'm going to get that number wrong. People to prepare one meal for him, and you think, oh my gosh, that's so many people. Like, wow, what kind of wealth did that guy have to get that? Well, the banana that's in your pantry has been through the hands of at least a couple thousand people. So it took a couple thousand people to prepare a banana as only one piece of your breakfast. Yeah. Now, what kind of wealth do you have in comparison to King Louis? And so you can see the connection that he's making of trying to get us to think rationally of how far we've come and to be optimistic about the future.
And get rid of the victim status stuff. I mean, people have said stuff to me, and I'm like, my name is Hickman. My last name is Hickman. Okay, so Hickman is a short for Richard's man. Okay, so somebody, whoever the first person that was named Hickman was, because he was either a serf or a slave of a person named Richard. Don't know if that guy was just a farmer. I don't know if it was King Richard. I have no idea. We can't go back that far. But I don't look at that as, oh, you know, I had an ancestor who was in a bad situation. I look at it, I have an ancestor who made it through. Somehow, don't know. Maybe he had to scrape and bow in front of the king to whatever to survive. But you know what? They survived. And here I am. So I look at that and I go, man, people have been able to work through and live through. That's just phenomenal. And I look at that, you know, one time I had it's sort of a weird thing, but I had a fish that's finned my finger, right? And it got infected, and it was really, really, really painful. And so finally I thought, well, you know, I don't want to have blood poisoning and lose my arm or something crazy, you know? So I went to the doctor, and I actually had another meeting after that. And I said, listen, I need you to drain this or figure out what the deal is with it, right? And so he brings in this person that's like an intern or whatever, and is like shadowing him, you know, and walks in and so he puts my finger on the thing, and he goes, okay, well, what do you want me to do? I said, well, I need to know what the deal is. Either pull out whatever's in there, fix it, something.
Yeah. Please just don't take it off.
Yeah, I said, don't, you know, or hey, if you need to take the end of it off, take it off. I'd rather lose the tip of my finger than, you know, do the Ronnie Lott thing and then lose the whole hand, right? Because I don't know what's going to happen, because it looked like it was getting infected. And so he took a needle and he stuck it in there, and he stuck it through my finger, like through the nail. And first he asked me, do you want anything? And I was like, I need to be out of here in about 15 minutes. I got a meeting to go to. I got a client I got to meet. And so he sticks it all the way through there, and it's pretty painful. And he's like, you know what? I think you're going to be fine. You know, I don't see anything. You know, it's just for whatever reason, it's a finger. It's you know. And so he told the lady that was there with him, shouting, he goes, man, that's the bravest thing you're going to see all day. And I was like, that wasn't brave. I just don't have time to deal with this. And you know what? The pain will go away at some point. And I have read stuff about people who have dealt with much more pain than a finger. So you know what? I think I can handle it. You know, and so that was my attitude versus, oh man, my finger's all messed up. I need to go home and not work today. You know, I'm like, no, man, let's keep on rolling. You know. And you know, I probably from my grandfather, who did lose fingers in the farming business, and he just kept on going.
It's funny. Yeah, you're not a good farmer unless you're losing a few.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Well, Mike, we're getting pressed for time.
Okay.
But I did want to ask for the viewers and anybody that's watching, you know, what is the best way to contact you? Is it, you know, through finding you on LinkedIn? Is it a phone number? Is it an email?
Easy.
What's the best way to find you?
You can. My Google Voice number is 404-594-2009. My email is Hickman, Hickman @kw.com. If you hunt around on social media with ATL Hickman, you'll find me. So that's the best way to hunt me down in different spots. And, you know, hit me up on the DMs on Twitter. I'm on there. And, you know, that's the best way to hunt me down. And I do answer my own phone, strangely enough.
That's weird.
It's very strange, yeah. Which is sometimes very bad, because I have thousands and thousands of blocked numbers now from telemarketers. And, you know, I always ask telemarketers, where are you located? Oh, I'm in San Francisco. Yeah. Don't need it. Where are you located? Atlanta? Really? In real estate? You own your own home?
Yeah.
You know? Why not?
You start selling to them.
Why? Exactly. Why not? You know?
Funny.
And
if the number looks like yours, you probably shouldn't pick it up.
Yeah, no, I actually have that set up on Hiya such that if it looks like my number, it flags it.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that.
I let it go to voicemail, the whole spoofing thing, you know, so.
Well,
anyway,
good.
That's how you get in touch with me.
Yeah, love it. Well, again, thanks for driving out here, getting on the show. It's been an
absolute
blast. It's been too long. Let's shorten the time between the next time we get to see each other and hang out with the family and do something.
Sounds good to me.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Again, this is The Jungle. I'm your host, Dakota Ward, joined here this morning by Mike Hickman from Keller Williams. Absolute pleasure, and you'll have an awesome rest of the week.